Except more people here.
Yeah. You never know, though. Sometimes we'll have 20 people.
Yeah, wow.
I can protest something.
Now, do my taxes pay for you guys sitting there at this meeting like this? Oh, they're volunteers? Oh,
Good evening. The City of Bothell Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 11th will come to order. Let the record show that all planning commissioners are present and accounted for except for Commissioners Clark and Stedman, who are absent and excused. Are there any non-agenda public comments? Hearing none, no minutes to approve and no new business. We're going to move directly into a continuation of our public hearing on the 2015 periodic plan and code update that we have been working on really for the past almost year now. And this evening we'll be working on 3 particular sub-areas for Bothell. There will be a second review of the Shelton View Meridian sub-area plan, a second review of the Queensboro Brentwood Crystal Springs sub-area plan, and a second review of the downtown sub-area plan. And at this point, we will have a presentation from Dave Boyd.
Thank you and good evening. I've just got a short presentation, and then we can go into the page-by-page review of the documents for tonight. So, as Chair Booth mentioned, tonight we're doing second review of Shelton View, Meridian, 3rd Avenue Southeast, downtown, and Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs. Shelton View Meridian, just to encapsulate it, it currently comprises 581 acres. We're going to be proposing a few boundary adjustments that we'll need to make some adjustments in that figure. We've got the changes include housekeeping amendments, one zoning boundary adjustment to eliminate several split-zoned parcels east of Meridian between 232nd and 236th. Other amendments reflect your preliminary recommendations for the planning area-wide element recommendations. And then there are 3 boundary changes that will also be reflected in the Canyon Park and Country Village sub-area plans. Up in the northeast corner, adjacent to Canyon Park, we are proposing to revise the boundary, take that little finger out, which doesn't follow parcel lines or zoning boundaries, and to put that entire RAC OPCB zoned area in the Canyon Park sub-area. We'll also be doing similar with the RAC OPCB to the north, moving that from Queensboro into Canyon Park. And then in the south west corner of the Country Village current community business zoning, we are proposing to move that from Shelton View into the Country Village sub-area, along with the 5 parcels to the south extending to 240th that are being proposed for the RAC designation as part of the Country Village sub-area plan. And then in between those two, this is one that wasn't flagged last time around, but it's the Jorgensen parcel, which you've heard about in the Country Village, your review of the Country Village sub-area plan. That's a split-zoned parcel. It's not only split-zoned, it's split between the Country Village and Shelton View sub-areas, so we're proposing at their request to rezone it to the entire parcel to R5400D and move it entirely within the Country Village sub-area. So that will reduce the acreage slightly, and that'll be reflected in the final integrated plan, as well as the Country Village and Canyon Park sub-area plans. Just wanted to make a quick note here that the proposal from Mike Harmon to study the 5 parcels on Nike Hill for potential higher density and development was deferred, along with the Malik rezone request up in the Queensboro, Brentwood sub-area. So those will come back to you shortly after we finish the work on the periodic plan and code update. And then Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs sub-area. It currently comprises 898 acres. Again, changes include housekeeping amendments and other amendments to reflect your preliminary recommendations on the area-wide elements. And then the one boundary adjustment, shifting the RAC OPCB zone into the Canyon Park, as we are recommending for Shelton View as well. And then just a quickly to touch on downtown before we get into the details. Downtown is a 529-acre sub-area. There are no proposals for rezones or other plan amendments within the sub-area. There are a number of code amendments that were presented at the January 7th hearing and that we'll be discussing tonight as part of the page-by-page review. And I did want to just note that the proposed rezone of the Wayne Golf Course Clubhouse area would have extended the downtown sub-area approximately 4.4 acres, but that also is being deferred until after the 2015 periodic plan and code update process, as was determined at the February 4th hearing. So on the downtown sub-area, just wanted to remind you that the downtown sub-area plan and regulations that were adopted in 2009 include the plan elements, the community vision, the city actions, and also the appendix with the existing conditions. And we're not making any changes to those at this time. But they also include special development regulations for downtown, and that's where our efforts are focused with the downtown plan. So with that, I'll take any questions before, and we can take public testimony if there is any, and then I can launch into the page-by-page review of the sub-area plans and regulations. I also have the rezone analysis for the Shelton View rezone to review if you wish. And then at that time, a motion to preliminarily approve the Shelton View and Queensboro sub-area plans and the downtown sub-area regulations would be in order. And then we would continue the public hearing on the 2015 periodic plan and code update to February 5th, 25th for the third review of the Waynita Simons Norway Hill sub-area plan. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you have. And
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate it. So a real initial question I have, and that is this page-by-page review. Are you suggesting that we do that for all three of these sub-area plans?
I think it will go pretty quickly because there aren't many changes. I will highlight the changed items, but I think just to make sure that there aren't any further changes to incorporate when we bring it back with the integrated package.
If we can do it fairly quickly, as I've gone through the packet, and I do want to hear from the others up here, just from a preliminary comment standpoint. But I have very few changes to what staff is recommending on these, and so I don't think we need to take a lot of time. But if we really need to do it page by page, if we can do it fairly quickly, I think that would be all right. And then on the ones where there is some specific changes, either boundary changes or designation changes, are you going to want us to do a motion specifically for each of those changes, or just to the staff recommendations for the plan for the area in general?
I think a general recommendation on the preliminary recommendations would cover the boundary changes as well.
Okay. Those are my only questions. Anybody else have any initial questions? Is there any public comment at this point? All right. Hearing none, I think at this...
I might have one, just curiosity.
All right, well, then we need you to come forward and...
I've never been to one of these before.
Okay.
I live in the area where the Shelton View is.
So thanks, sir, for coming. Come to the podium if you would, and just for the record, just state your name and
Yeah,
address.
Jim Ferguson, 23631 Meridian Avenue South. Yeah, the question I have, and I was asking him the same
Oh,
thing, is,
and just, I know we don't have a lot, but we try to keep our comments to 3 to 4 minutes if you
but
could.
it's not going to be that long. How come you guys are stopping at that little box instead of making a bigger area, 8,400 square feet instead of the 96? How come you don't, I don't know what street that is before you get to Meridian when you're heading west? Why can't you go all the way over there and change it? What's the reason you're just doing that? He just tried to explain it to me, but I don't understand it. I mean, they don't have to, your lot can be bigger than 84 even if it's 84, correct?
Well, there are limitations. If you're doing a subdivision in in any of our zones, the largest lot that you can create is 150% of the minimum. So 8,400 would be 12,600. So there are some limitations that way. As I told Mr. Ferguson earlier, this was basically cleaning up those split zone properties in the zone area that we did extend that 8,400 zoning. There was no request. We did get some input from a builder associated with some of the properties in the north end of that area, supportive of the rezone. We didn't get any requests from to extend it any further. This is the first suggestion that we've heard. So we just didn't really analyze that or consider that. There is a subdivision that's in process right now immediately south of this area, so that's already in the works, assuming it goes through. The rezone wouldn't affect them. So basically, the short answer is that we, until this point, we hadn't really gotten any input in favor of extending it further.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think at this point, we're ready to go ahead and do that review of each plan. And as I said, I had only a few questions on the height regulation changes for the downtown, really, that I even had questions on. But if we do want to go ahead and are you talking about both the profile as well as the policies part of each plan, or?
Yeah, I don't think there's any changes in the profiles. I've highlighted a couple of areas where we will be adjusting the acreage in the profile, but just for your.
So yeah, I would just say, so if we want to just go ahead and get started on the Shelton View Sub-Meridian 3rd Avenue plan.
Yeah.
If you want to, yeah, I've got that in front of me right now. From a summary and a profile standpoint, we've gone through this, and I'm certainly supportive of the changes. Are there any? I don't think there's any questions.
And was there any interest in looking at the analysis on the rezone action?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it would be good to kind of take another look at that. And so, why don't you just take us through that? So, let me bring that up in front of me as well. So, what you're proposing is we have this parcel to the west that's R8400, and when you say split zoned, you're saying that there's in that particular part that you're talking about changing.
Yeah.
It's some of it is zoned 96 and some zoned 84. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, the current zoning boundary is right here.
Right.
And that bisects this lot here, this lot here, several of the newly platted lots. I'm not exactly sure what the full reason why the zoning boundary didn't follow property lines as they usually do. I suspect that at one point these were property lines, and when these subdivisions were done, they combined some properties and then split them up again. We could have ended it if we were just looking to fix those issues. We could have ended it right here, but we did decide to just go ahead and square off to extend the L in that R8400. The Palmetto subdivision is in this area, kind of wraps around one of the existing houses there. So that's the one that's already in the works. But frankly, we didn't look at extending it any further to the south. We could certainly do that and come back to you if we thought there was any merit in doing that. But
Commissioner Cabe.
Just a general question. So everything east of Meridian is generally R9600, minus the bump out we have here with 84.
Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
you get to the Country Village sub area, that whole area is 9600.
yes.
I mean, I don't know if it changes my thinking any. It just seems like the 8400 is more the anomaly than the 9600. But if it makes sense to stretch further,
Well, I have to admit that was kind of my thinking as well. I'm not strongly feeling this one way or the other, but you have these small lots kind of in the middle there that, and those are 8,400. Is that correct?
These
Those right
in here?
there?
Yes.
And so
Well,
you-
they're actually a mix. On the corners, because of the geometry, most of those corner lots get bigger, but there are some 8,400 lots there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So changing that to 8,400 accurately depicts what's reality at that point. But the other lots, I guess I'm not quite following as to why we wouldn't just leave them 9,600.
These larger lots to the south.
Yeah, and also
these
to
ones.
the north as well.
Well, these ones these are two of the split zone lots, and then this lot behind is landlocked but owned by the same owner as this one here.
Okay.
So they are looking at doing something with those parcels and supported the 8,400. They didn't submit a letter of support, but they did just directly to staff indicate their support or their interest in seeing this done. The increased yield is pretty minimal. Mostly because all these central lots are already developed. There's no potential for adding any subdividing any of those existing lots. On the south, there's some environmental constraints that are probably going to prevent those from subdividing any more than they can under the R9600 zoning. And you're probably only going to get one additional lot in these northern parcels by my analysis.
So if you were to just take those smaller lots in the middle, make that 8,400, but leave the rest of it 9,600, I mean, I'm not really a proponent of that. I'm just saying that's a possibility. I think we all know that, kind of once we give up, larger lots, we kind of never recover them. But at this, I don't have a real strong feeling about that either way. I don't know if anybody else up here does either. But so I'm.
Yeah, I just have one clarifying thing. Have we had people asking? Were there petitions?
This was a staff-generated
A staff-generated. Okay. thanks.
action.
So your staff is just looking at this and going, let's have this kind of more accurately reflect kind of the reality on the ground. Is that-
Right.
Yeah.
And eliminate some nonconformities that are on the ground and eliminate those split zone properties.
Got it. I don't have any more comment. I'm supportive of it, but yeah, I think we are. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to the general plan here. Oop, what happened there? Bear with me for a moment. I seem to have lost Shelton View. Okay. I won't mess with the enabling editing. Is that a good size for you to review, or if I go to a single page? Is that
Yeah, it's
is that okay?
fine. We have ours in front of us.
Okay. So I just wanted to I can go quickly through this profile. I just did highlight here the acreage, the overall acreage that'll change a bit with the boundary adjustments. Otherwise, there are no changes here from the first review. So I'll just kind of scroll through till we get to the one change that I've made here. So under the land use policy 4, what I've done is I've made some edits to the policy that previously said that all the land in the northeast corner of the sub-area, which includes the Nike Hill area, is appropriate for. I'm sorry. This is the one dealing with the small RACOP-CB area that we're proposing that we shift into the Canyon Park sub-area. So
Right.
those edits are just related to that.
Right.
And those were not in your packet. Those are edits that I've added when we realized we'd overlooked those. And then here, under what is now Policy 5, or Policy 6, is the changes that we've made for the Nike Hill area, just to, since we're not moving forward with the rezone, to establish the policy in support of the study to look at more intensive uses in that area.
Yep.
And then at the bottom, there's an action also related to that at the end of the land use section. And then another change that wasn't in your packet was related to the Country Village property. Since we're proposing shifting that property into the Country Village sub-area, there's no need for this text related to the Country Village sub-area and the special buffers there.
Oh, so which one wasn't in our packet? So I guess
The ones that are highlighted in yellow were not in your packet.
Okay.
So
if I haven't seen that, then I haven't seen it.
So on page SV7 was the first one. The highlighted area is that related to the shift of the area into the Canyon Park sub-area. And then on SV9 is the text related to the land that's in the Country Village, or that we're proposing be shifted to the Country Village sub-area.
Okay.
And we'll coordinate these with the plans for those areas, sub-areas as well.
Okay.
All
right.
They come back. So, and then moving on through, I don't believe there are any changes from the first review in the rest of the policies and actions. In the transportation section, we're still awaiting any changes that need to be made there for consistency with the transportation area-wide element, but those will be incorporated for the integrated review.
Got it.
And so that really is all I have on the Shelton View sub-area.
Okay. So we had, I think each of us have gone through this, and I can tell you, we had a few questions about the one kind of designation change that we discussed. But other than that, I can tell you, I'm ready to approve the language as is. Is there any?
I have one quick question.
Yeah, Mr. Lee.
Just going back to that zone change, and so when we do staff zone changes like that, is there any notification that needs to go out or anything, or is it?
Yes, this site was posted, and then the notification was the official notification was through the Imagine Bothell notice, but we did do a courtesy mailing to properties within 300 feet of the area, and that's why a number of the people here came. I did have my contact information, so I was would have been good if they had called, because several of them are in the part that's already zoned R 8400 and aren't really affected by this. So, so that mailing did get out. I have not received any comments from neighbors other than what we heard tonight.
Okay, thanks.
So at this point, would you suggest that we go ahead and do a motion to approve the plan for the Shelton View Meridian sub-area?
Sure. Yeah, that would be appropriate.
So I could hear a
Yeah.
proposed motion for
I move that we approve the. I move that we approve the revised Shelton View Meridian 3rd Avenue sub-area.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving on. See if I can. To the Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs sub-area plan. This one has even fewer changes since last time, so I'll go ahead and scroll through. I failed to highlight the acreage, but that will change slightly with the proposed boundary adjustment. And there really is only one change since last time.
So is this with regards to the Malik rezone request?
Yes. Oh, I see. Okay. So I did add some language to the policy referring to the NB zone there, and identified that we will be studying that area for expanding of that, possible expansion of the NB and possible mixed-use development to support the Neighborhood Activity Center there. That's in Policy 6 on page QB6. And then...
I did see that, Dave, and I think you've gotten the message clearly from the Planning Commission that we do want to see some fairly intensive replanning of that whole area, and so I'm glad that you've included that text in there.
And then also added an action like we did in Shelton View, and noted that study should be coordinated with the Nike Hills study.
Yeah, I think I'm supportive as written. Anybody have any other comment? No?
I like it.
And I think that is it. Again, the transportation element still needs to be updated for consistency with the area, planning area-wide transportation element. But you've already reviewed those, so the only changes we would make would be in line with those.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead with a motion for the Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs sub-area plan.
Move to, move to approve the Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs sub-area plan as given direction by staff with the changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. So, see if we can get that a little bit bigger. So I've, on the downtown sub-area regulations, there are actually a couple of changes that I've made since the packet went out, and I, first of all, I do want to apologize that the packets got the quality of the prints wasn't very good, and they were copied to flip up, which didn't make sense with the three-ring. I don't know if any of you put yours in three-ring binders, but that wasn't how it was intended to be, and I just discovered that yesterday. So, but what I'm going to put up on the screen, and I hope it wasn't too confusing to just include the change pages in your packet. I am going to go through the whole thing so that if there were any comments on any of the proposed amendments from the January 7th hearing, you could chime in on
When you
those
say the
now.
whole thing, I hope you mean just 12.64, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
You got me worried there.
So again, I flagged that we are deferring the work on the Wayne Golf Course Club area, house area rezone and potential expansion of the downtown area on the map. The other changes proposed here would go ahead. On January 7th, I just noted that Council had initiated code amendments to increase the height in feet, not floors, for the downtown core and downtown neighborhood zones. And the direction I got was to go ahead with a proposal there. I haven't actually made the changes on the table there, but it's pretty simple. In the downtown core, it would go from 6 floors and 65 feet to 7 floors and 76 feet. And the main reason for this, and we'll show them on the following pages, the analysis is to provide, to allow us to reach the capacity that we had planned for in terms of office development, and also to remove any disincentive for office development due to the heights that we have now.
Oh, Dave?
Yes.
Quick question. So you said 7 floors at 76 feet. Did you mean 6 floors at 76 feet, or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, I meant, I'm sorry if I misspoke, but it goes from, the number of floors stays the same, 6 floors, and the height in feet goes from 65 feet to 76 feet. The heights that we're proposing were the heights that were originally proposed with the downtown plan, based on 12-foot and 16-foot ground floor to floor height, and then 12-foot floor to floor heights above that.
So I remember last time we kind of did the math, so that adds up now. So 16 for floor 1, and then the top 5 would be 12 times 5
Times
is
five,
60,
yeah.
so for a total of 76 feet.
Right.
So got it.
Now, that formula would actually lead to 5 stories and 54 feet for downtown neighborhood, but the analysis that was done, the proposal in the downtown initial proposal and the analysis that was done in the EIS was for 5 floors and 55 feet in the downtown neighborhood. So the Planning Commission could choose either of those numbers. We went with the one that was actually included in the original proposal, even though it doesn't quite fit that formula. Before we get to the analysis of that, there are a couple of other amendments on the following page for the downtown core. Just this morning, we had some initial conversations with a prospective developer for what we call Lot O, the old bus barn site. And that is an area that is split zone between downtown neighborhood and downtown transition district. Both of those districts have the special downtown parking requirements of 0.75 vehicles per bedroom. And for most of the development we've seen has been studio and 1 bedroom predominantly, a few 2 bedrooms. But in the downtown transition portion of that site, this developer is proposing to do townhouses, and they're predominantly 3 and 4 bedroom. They're going for potentially, they're going for owner-occupied townhomes, and going for a product that's more oriented towards families, which is certainly something that we would like to see in the mix of downtown housing. But the 0.75 per bedroom actually becomes a disincentive when you get up to 3 or 4 bedrooms. It would require 2.25 spaces for a 3-bedroom and 3 spaces for a 4-bedroom, whereas the citywide code would only require 2.2. So this is very last minute, and we haven't had a chance to really provide an analysis, but we did want to flag this as something that we may come back to you with in the when we bring the integrated proposal back, and we may explore a little bit further with council. Council has already directed us that they would like to see some more analysis of these parking requirements done. So we might not be quite ready to propose a change here, but one thought would be that we stick with the 0.75 per bedroom, but would have a cap of 2 or 2.2 spaces, so that we don't create a disincentive for family-oriented housing. So I'd be happy to get any input you might have on that, but I don't have a real solid proposal for you.
Well, I do. I'll start off, and then I'd be interested to hear the other comments. We had a fairly intensive discussion around this, where should it be 1 or 0.75, and so I don't necessarily think we need to completely reopen that. At the same time, I agree with you. We do want to have a mix of owner-occupied as well as rental options available. So just off the top of my head, the idea of capping it is something I'm kind of open to thinking about, but I'd be interested in the thoughts here. So, Commissioner Gastineau.
I thought I was thinking about the cap, but when you were bringing that up, what are other people doing?
It's really all over the map. Some jurisdictions require even more parking than Bothell does with the 2.2, but that's changing. When we did the code amendment for the general downtown corridor, we had a pretty robust discussion on parking, and I presented some analysis that was done by a King County right-size parking study, and that showed some jurisdictions. We're fairly unique in terms of some jurisdictions do base their parking on the size of the unit, the number of bedrooms, but most of the other ones have kind of a gradated scale. Like for a studio 1 bedroom, they might have 0.85. For a 2-bedroom, they'd have 1.25, and then for 3 and above, they have 2 or something.
My question is, does it ever go above 2? Any places? Does it?
Well, actually, in our single-family zones, we require 3 parking spaces. So,
yes.
So even in Bothell, and I think Woodinville has a higher parking. I don't remember the exact number, but maybe 2.5.
Commissioner Cabe.
Just a quick definition: does a driveway count as 2 spots, or a garage counts as?
A driveway can count if it's long enough, but I've only seen. I don't actually have a copy of the proposal for Lot O. They're proposing townhouses that, for the most part, have driveways that are too short to provide a parking space in the driveway. So for the most part, they're providing 2. They're proposing 2-car garages, either tandem or side by side. And there's not a whole lot of space on the rest of the site for additional parking. So they're also going to look into that, whether they can squeeze in some uncovered parking, some sort of guest parking. But they were a little bit worried about. They hadn't actually studied the 0.75 per bedroom, and were concerned that would be an issue for them.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one follow-up.
Cabe.
In general, I'm concerned about lack of parking downtown as we bring a lot of new developments on. But in this particular case, it seems like a cap makes sense and would fit the development type.
Yeah, I thanks for your thought. I guess I would just say, again, we did a lot of work on this. I felt like we did, and I know the city council did as well. So I don't know if we really want to completely open that back up. But for something like this, which is, I think, good for our downtown, something where we could add a cap or something like that is something we'd be open to consider. So I think that's the guidance we're giving you right now.
one other factor is that they would like at some point to have the option of converting these townhomes into fee simple ownership. And in that case, and if they started out as fee simple owned, and we had a 2.3 spaces required for a three bedroom, their 3-bedroom, then technically they'd have to fit 3. We round up where we don't have a whole. So capping it at an even number per unit would also alleviate that issue. So anyway, we'll give that some more thought and about whether we can bring something back to incorporate into this plan and code update, or whether it's something that's going to have to be wrapped up into a bigger parking study.
You could, I mean, just the last thought, the idea of 2 for the garage, but then 1 in the driveway, and that may impact the kind of product they're thinking about building, but it's potentially one way of working that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
On the upper right portion of this page, I have added, that was in your packet, definition for anchor development in the glossary that would define anchor development as a development with at least 30,000 square feet of retail uses, including at least 1 anchor retail of at least 10,000 square feet. That's essentially how we've been applying that, but we thought it would be good to codify that, make that clear. And the anchor, defining anchor retail at 10,000 square feet also helps us with the maximum rental size, or maximum tenant width requirement that we touched on last time, and we'll get to here again later. So again, in the downtown neighborhood, the height limit issue, and here's where I get into a little bit of the analysis. So this was in your packet, but I thought it might be worth discussing a little bit. The issue really did come up with the early plans for the City Hall, and this was one of the early schemes where we were looking at a 4-story, a full 4 floors for City Hall. And in this particular scheme, also City Hall is on a split-zoned parcel where they have the option of pushing the zoning boundary. They can push downtown core back to within 60 feet of 101st Street, or they could push the downtown neighborhood within 70 feet of the multi-way boulevard, so that we have significant chunk of building on the street frontages on either side. They were running into our building envelope because in the downtown plan the height limit is projected from the finished grade on all sides. So if it's a sloped lot, you get a sloped top box for your building envelope. So at 55 feet, they were just barely getting under the height limit on 101st Street, and then as soon as it started sloping away, they were having issues there. And then if they pushed the downtown core zoning as far to the east as they could, that jumps up and gives them a little breathing room. But then again, it dives down, and they were running into issues even with a 65-foot height limit with 4 stories because at that point the grade slopes down so that the parking level and the sort of mechanical uses that are on this part of the parking deck create a full floor above grade. So they're really getting 5 stories, counting that those mechanical spaces, but they're needing 69 feet. And a big reason for that is to get adequate daylighting into the interiors of an office floor. They need these high windows. That's why they have a continuous row of high windows to provide that daylighting and to get the LEED rating that the city is committed to. So that's something that we want to encourage. So basically, what they told us is that the height limits we have work fine for residential development. We are seeing developers get 6 stories in the 65-foot height limit, 5 stories in the 55-foot height limit, but they're not working for office space. So we either have to accept that we'll get fewer floors of office development, or raise that height limit in feet so that we're not disincentivizing office development. The extra height will also somewhat mitigate the struggles that developers are finding with the slope top box, which are illustrated. Oops. Thought I had another figure. I guess that figure comes in later, but I did want to raise that issue here. So we think that, and most of the pushback that we got on the height limits when we first introduced these higher height limits with the downtown plan wasn't so much with the heights in the downtown core and downtown neighborhood districts. It was with what then was 4 stories and 54 feet right up against the residential zoning outside of downtown sub-area. So we wound up ratcheting everything down, but we think there is a good reason to raise them in these core areas. Any questions?
So again, for whether it's downtown neighborhood or downtown core, the raising to 76 feet, does that take care of this? What you're showing us here is an early design. This is not City Hall as it's in reality going to be built.
Right.
So
the proposed design removed part of the 4th floor so that it eliminated this issue, and they were able to make some adjustments to address this issue as well. And even the allowing, it would solve the problem for this particular design, which really doesn't even max out the number of floors. It's providing 4 floors in the 5-story downtown neighborhood, and essentially 5 in the 6-story downtown core. But it would have enabled them to move forward on this design if that was the direction that we went.
So I wasn't up here, in this current role in 2008, 2009. But what was the original? If you were there, then around the sloped roof, was it more for visual effect? I mean, that a sloped roof building was going to have a more interesting look than a box sitting there, or I mean, I've seen some of the the early downtown plans, and the roof lines have kind of an interesting design to them. So was this more visual, or was there a functional reason for that? The
reason for the slope top building envelope wasn't to encourage sloped roof buildings, but it was to encourage buildings that step down with the land.
Okay.
So under our citywide zoning, where you kind of average the grade around the building and then have a flat top box, on a steep slope site in an area that allowed 6-story development, you might have 4 stories on the uphill side and 7 or 8 on the downhill side. And we had a couple of proposals just before the downtown plan that did just that and created some pushback. So that was one reason for going with this different way of doing height. We also considered whether to modify that because we have run into issues with developers finding the corner of a building plate and having to do step designs where it maybe wasn't it certainly wasn't ideal from their standpoint and maybe wasn't that critical from an urban design standpoint, but But we think that just adding that extra height will give them some more flexibility where that they won't be running up against that the top of that envelope so much. So we think we're taking an incremental approach to that issue and proposing that we just deal with the height limit now and not change the method.
So staff doesn't think that if we go to 76 feet, that then we'll see other designs that, oh gosh, if we'd go to 85, it would even be better. I mean, does this 76 feet really solve kind of a problem and kind of what is more accurately reflect what the vision is for downtown? I mean, I think that would be my emphasis is, I mean, if we raise it, there's going to be some developer that comes along and has some idea for, well, it really should be 90. You know, it just would be so much better if we did that. And it's like we need to kind of really make sure we adhere to kind of what we really are trying to do downtown.
Yeah.
But if 76 solves the problem and yet keeps the vision, I'm in favor of it. But
I think it does for the most. I'm sure we will have developers that'll say that it should have been higher, 80 feet or whatever. But we studied in the EIS. We studied the 76 feet, so we can do that without doing a supplemental EIS. We don't want to go. We don't want to go down that road.
Right.
And we think that will provide flexibility so that somebody can do a reasonable office development and get that they won't be penalized on their bottom line by going with office development instead of residential, and will enable us to get the kind of balance of uses that we would like to see.
And I would agree with that, and that is one of the kind of basic visions for downtown is that there is a variety of residential options, but there's also a variety of uses, not only retail but potentially office. That this could be, you know, a variety of uses. Retail's great, but office is good too, where people are actually coming there to work.
Yeah.
And
for a lot of reasons.
For various reasons.
So
retailer
that
obviously
restaurants
working
have a
as well.
lunch crowd.
Exactly.
So that also parking. If not everybody is bringing their cars in just at night, if some of them are here during the day and some are leaving at night, then that tends to help with parking issues as well.
So in the staff analysis, looking at everything of what's been asked, we don't want to do another EIS. I agree. Staff's recommending this 76 feet as the new height restriction or height limit. And would that be for both downtown core and downtown neighborhood?
So it'd be 76 in downtown core and 65 in downtown neighborhood.
Okay.
Right. They maintain the 6 and 5 story limits. Anything else on that?
Commissioner Cabe.
I don't want to belabor the point. It just seems like a lot of time and money went into the initial plan. How do we go from 76 to 65 and what was adopted? Can you just give us some more history?
Yeah.
And
Well, our consultant did the first draft of the plan, what we called the public review draft, and in that draft, which they bounced off staff before we went public with it, they proposed this formula with 6 stories 76, 5 stories 55, 4 stories 54. And we were a little bit nervous. We thought up until then the maximum height allowed in downtown was 65 feet. And so we thought, you know, going beyond that would perhaps create some angst, and we were particularly concerned that the 54 feet up against the residential zoning on the perimeter of the downtown would create some backlash, and we decided to go ahead and float those height limits anyway. In hindsight, that was probably a mistake. We probably should have taken a closer look and made some adjustments, maybe reduced those around the perimeter and left the higher height in the core. But we did get the backlash. And as a result, we chose to just ratchet everything down and go with a formula of 15-foot ground floor and 10-foot floors above that. And one of the advantages of that was that it kept that 60-foot maximum height that we had before. So we could say we're not raising heights in downtown. And then we also, the bigger move was on the perimeter, we dropped the downtown transition from 4 stories to 3 stories. So it went from 54 feet under the more generous formula to 35 feet under the old formula. So that was kind of how that evolved. It was a little bit of a reaction to the backlash against the higher heights initially, but we didn't. In that, all the testimony we heard was almost entirely about the heights at the transition zone, not in the core. So, and at the previous hearing, it was requested that we do some additional outreach, and I did present this to the Downtown Merchants Association and the Chamber's Business Advocacy Group, so the word has gotten out also through the Imagine Bothell notice to some degree. So, and
What's the feedback been?
there really has been little at those meetings at the Business Advisory Committee. They were quite supportive and even asked about writing a letter. Didn't transpire, but they might before it gets to council. The merchants were. They're not really looking at this as a major issue for them, but so I didn't really get strong support, or I didn't get any negative feedback on it. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Vliet.
Yes, and the increase with the increased height recommendation, Dave. I'm just so I'm understanding too. It had a sustainability component to it. People who wanted to build a greener building wanted to have bigger floors, let in more light. Was that correct?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, it's a daylighting issue. It's also an issue. I don't know if that's going to be for a factor in downtown, but I know for biotech offices, I don't know if we'll get that kind of development downtown, but they also need higher floor-to-floor heights just for the mechanical systems, extra mechanical systems. Ready to move on? So still in the downtown, there weren't any changes from the first review here. These are just housekeeping edits. And again, I think it was more of a scrivener's area that we didn't include business and personal services as permitted use in a couple of these districts. And this page can be eliminated because the feedback last time was to defer any re-examination of changing the general commercial area to SR 522 corridor, as was originally proposed in the downtown planning process. Here highlighted are the changes that were made in part because of the proposal to extend SR 522 zoning to the Wayne Golf Course, but it was also because we had struggled with some prospective restaurant uses in that 522 corridor zoning. So we added language to define auto-oriented restaurants as restaurants, including restaurants with drive-through service and also restaurants that are associated with special attractions or facilities outside of the central downtown district. So Preservation Kitchen, for example, went into a historic building which fit their theme, and so that sort of use would be allowed. A restaurant along the river that had some tie-in with the river, perhaps kayak rentals as part of their operation, could go along the 522 corridor. So that was the thinking there. We think that's worth doing regardless of the Wayne Golf Course issue. These are some...
Before we move on,
yeah.
I just want to make sure there's nothing in that page or in the language in any of the changes that is in any way suggesting or kind of heading us in a direction around Wayne Golf Course. So suggesting it be included in the downtown sub area or just any type of, because we're not ready to do that.
Yeah,
And,
that's right.
all right, thank you.
In fact, as we go forward, I'll probably just remove any reference to Wayne Golf Course on this one.
I think that would be a good idea.
I did want to address that, though, follow up on what we discussed previously. The use charts, again, only have minor changes. The auto-oriented restaurant is kept there for the auto-oriented zones. So here's the how we do the height limits in downtown. And last time I talked about potential changes to this, but like I said, our current thinking is that adding those the extra feet will address the issues that we're seeing developers run up against there. We do propose to make a few slight tweaks to these illustrations just to fix some minor inaccuracies. And this is a illustration. This is the Mercantile Building proposal, and the green plane is that the sloped top of the building envelope, and it's we asked them to do this illustrations to show us exactly which parts of the building they were having trouble keeping within the height limit, and we were able to use this illustration to work with them through those issues and come up with a acceptable solution. And then on the height limit, we are proposing allowing special features like elevator head houses to extend 15 feet because we ran into some issues with the current height limit that the Boulevard Place, the SHAG project designer was able to solve by putting a sloped roof on top of that head house, but it seemed like gymnastics that we really shouldn't require, and if elevator head houses need 13 feet of clear floor-to-ceiling space, we should have a height limit that is commensurate with that.
I think we discussed this last time, didn't
Yeah.
we? And I think we're supportive of that.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the upper level setback on Main Street and also 101st and 102nd north of Main Street. This is, again, the Mercantile Building design. Let me forgot to turn the lights down here. It's a little bit hard to see here, but this is the portion along Main Street that we're just proposing that instead of allowing half of it to go all the way out to the edge, that they could fill half of that volume on the third level. And we think it works quite well here.
Can you just clarify for me, the Mercantile Building is that, well, Claire, I think I know where
This
that's
is-
located, but
This
Claire,
is Main Street. This is 102nd going down toward the bridge. So the Mercantile Building is one of our historic buildings downtown. It's not on the register, but it's definitely a building that we wanted to see preserved, and the developer is proposing to preserve the three facades.
right, okay, I'm with you. Yep, took me just a second, I'm with you.
Right
Everybody with him on where this is located? It's right across from the Cozy Corner Cafe,
Right.
right? Yep, got it.
And across Main Street from Wells Fargo.
Sorry, I was a little slow there.
So this is just to illustrate that what the change we're making for that upper level setback. It also the current setback is a 20-foot setback, which is a pretty generous terrace area, and two 10-foot setbacks are probably more usable, better usable space. And then I mentioned earlier the definition of anchor retail as larger than 10,000 that would allow a tenant to have a width greater than the 75 that we're proposing. We're proposing increasing the maximum tenant width from 50 to 75 to reflect what we're seeing on the ground. And then this anchor exception, or the anchor retail definition, would apply to a business like Bothell Furniture, which is right around 10,000 feet and has about a 90-foot frontage on Main Street. Now, one of the ones that I struggled with a little bit is the maximum building length definition. The way the illustration in the code shows the entire building as being having to comply with that maximum building length. But the way it's defined, the language says that the maximum building length applies to the primary building mass, the total length of the primary building mass. So we've had a number of proposals that have come in and suggested different ways to comply and without breaking building up and requiring double elevator cores. So we're proposing some language, and what I presented to you in the packet included some very specific language about what percentage the setback should be of the length of the primary building mass. But we realized that we were kind of painting ourselves into a corner with that, and would likely run into a developer that would come up with a reasonable proposal that didn't meet those specific requirements. So we decided to keep it, just add some more clarifying language that explains that there can be a break in the primary building mass, and the recess needs to be clearly articulated. Should have a different siding or different lower roof line, and so we proposed to change the illustration to illustrate, to show that, and probably this is just a crude attempt to convert the existing illustration. It would probably be best to do it as a little three-dimensional sketch that would show how some of our existing buildings have done that. This is the 104 building that broke up the mass along 185th with two courtyards that are also part of their required public open space. It's actually a combination of private and public open space in those courtyards. And here the street view of the street view on the right, and a view across one of those courtyards from one of the second floors on the left. And Six Oaks, this is a little bit hard to read, but they pushed the envelope a little bit further even, where on the south side they had their primary building mass, the setback only 20 feet, but it was the area that they were setting back to save the Six Oaks, which was something that we wanted to support, and we felt that in their renderings of the building, it did effectively break up the primary building mass. So these are just examples of why we think it's worth making those tweaks in the coding. This was also, we're starting to analyze what the percentage should be, and it just became kind of an exercise in, we might be able to come up with some percentages based on what we've seen so far, but the next developer in the door might have a perfectly good solution that didn't comply with that. So we think it's better to keep the language a little more qualitative and less quantitative. Before I move on from that, any comments on?
Any comments or questions? Well, I had a little bit. So just the way I'm kind of reading what staff is recommending is we're allowing for these recessed facades, first of all, correct? Like what we did with 104 and what happened on Six Oaks.
Yes.
then I'm just reading in the language that you're proposing here. The minimum depth of the recessed area shall be 1/8 the length of the adjacent primary building mass.
And we're
I'm having a hard time kind of calculating that and kind of what's behind kind of how you're trying to frame that up.
Yeah,
with
I
that.
apologize. It's not clear here. We're proposing only using the bold text.
Okay.
And not getting into the quantitative requirement.
So
in the
the
second
part
half.
that was bold,
So I really should.
it looks all bold to me. But
Yeah, I know on the screen it does. So basically,
it stops at the lower roof line or other means.
Yes.
Is that where it
Yes.
stops? Yeah, because I think if you get beyond that, where you're getting into 1/8 of the length of the adjacent primary building mass, and then you have exception to 20 feet. I have a really hard time following that.
we agreed.
and
And I
what-
would have
how
just
that-
taken that out of here, but I wanted, since I had it in the packet, I wanted to bring it back to you and explain our thinking.
So I'm my own thought, but I really would be interested in everybody's thought. My thought is I think the idea of allowing for these recessed areas actually makes for a more interesting experience anyway for both the residents as well as those walking or passing by. So, and leave it a little more qualitative, I think is okay from my standpoint. But
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it makes the list aesthetically better. I like that.
I'd agree. It gives. I like giving the developers options.
yep.
They'll come up with good things.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. There's your feedback.
I think that's the last kind of sticky one. These are all street standards that are more kind of housekeeping standards that we discussed on January 7th. I haven't gotten any comments on these. This is, we did find that we have this maximum parcel perimeter requirement that requires developers with large lots to divide them either with the street or a public open space, but we didn't do a good job of defining what the dimensions of that public open space could be. The code says it can't just be a passage. Which is a 20-foot open space with a 6-foot walkway. But that 20 feet is the minimum the minimum dimension for most open spaces. So we just added this dimension, saying that open space can be as little as 20 feet, but it needs to average 30 feet over its length, just so it's not just a narrow corridor. We also.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Can we just move back? I missed where the 30 feet. That's in. Where's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. This change has to do with allowing the public open space to be to be split in situations where it all can read as a single open space.
Okay.
So the illustration. This is again the Mercantile Building, the north facade. This is the existing building that comes out, or this is the existing building that comes out to the sidewalk, and then the new building is going to be set back. And normally the code would require that building to come out to the back of sidewalk, but they have a public open space requirement, and they're proposing to do that, and we do allow public open space to meet that frontage coverage requirement. But they also have a driveway in the middle of that, and so which is bisecting their open space. But we thought this was having the driveway. Well, the driveway is really they don't have a lot of flexibility. They have to meet the grade to their floor plate for the building, so they don't have much room to move it one way or the other. And it helps to have some open space so there are better side angles for cars coming out of the driveway before
Agreed.
they cross the sidewalk.
Right.
So we thought this was actually a good solution and one that it was worth making that change in the code for.
Okay, yeah, so that language there makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What were you talking, though, about this 30
So-
feet?
Well, I'm wondering if I overlooked that or skipped over it here. Oh, here's the reference to the kinds of open space that can be used to meet that maximum parcel perimeter, and just a matter of adding a phrase in here saying that that street rights of way and public open spaces, including linear open spaces that average at least 30 feet in width over their entire length, will meet that requirement.
What? I'm sorry, I'm not. What page are we on?
Sorry, this is on page 86 of the plan.
86.
86 or 85?
Oh, 93.
'85 of the plan. And wasn't in didn't change from January 7th, so it wasn't in the latest packet.
Oh, okay. We don't have it in.
Yeah.
Let me see. I've got my January 7th
Looking for it.
packet with me. Let me see if I can find it.
This change is being tested, I guess you could say, in the plans for Lot O. Lot O is one of the few parcels that actually has to grapple with this maximum parcel perimeter.
I'm sorry. What page is that?
85?
Oh, 85. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I think I'm the only one that has that, so the rest of them can follow along on the screen. Take us through the problem we're trying to solve with this.
Well, let me skip forward to that. So if you have a large parcel, you need to, we're trying to avoid super blocks, essentially. And so you need to divide them either with a public street or with a public open space. But the requirement also says that alleys and passages, this particular type of open space that's just a 20-foot wide corridor, can't be used to solve that issue. So we're in a little bit of a quandary because 20 feet is also the minimum dimension for a public open space in general. So we thought we needed to add something to require something more than 20 feet in those situations. So you could have a linear open space that might neck down to 20 feet in some areas, but as long as it had some wider areas, some gathering places along it, that made for an average of a 30-foot open space, then that would qualify. And it would still require a lot less property than a street, which minimum right-of-way would be 46 or 54.
Okay. I get it.
Sorry to confuse
That's
that.
I think we're all on board with you.
And I think we were okay with this idea. One thing that we are asking them to do is to use similar pavers on the driveway, so it really does feel like one open space.
Good.
We don't count the driveway as part of the public open space, of course.
Great.
And then the rest of these are, well, that page was not incorporated. I flagged this one and included in the packet because we realized that the uplights that we have on trees in the multi-way boulevard don't meet our code. The code says that they should be turned off after midnight, and those uplights are on a solenoid that stays on all night. So I'm still investigating whether how difficult it's going to be to add a timer to those lights. They are on a separate circuit, so I'm hoping it's not too onerous. And we also considered whether we should change the requirement. But I think there is a reason for having that shut off, because those up lights could, where you're building apartments right up to the street, could be shining into people's windows. So I think we're going to try to keep the code as it is, and deal with the issue on the multi-way boulevard.
Okay.
Parking provisions. This hasn't changed, so it wasn't included in tonight's packet. This was to give us a little flexibility for situations like the Mercantile Building, where there wasn't a feasible way to get parking off an alley. And then just a minor addition to encourage convenient bike parking in addition to the secured parking that the code requires. And then simplifying these building length massing diagrams that were a little bit convoluted and confusing, eliminating some graphics, and just in all instances basing the requirement on the adjacent wall increment. And I don't believe there were any further changes in the architectural requirements, so those remain the same as before. This was an illustration we were thinking of using, but chose not to. So that's the end of the proposed amendments there.
Well, I mean, I think as we've gone along, we've provided you with some input, some questions, some clarifications, but at this point, are there any other pushback, comments, questions of staff? Commissioner Cabe.
I don't really have any pushback. Just, I guess I'm a little concerned that with the building height issue, we have to do what's right for Bothell, and it makes a lot of sense to encourage office development. But I wasn't party to all the discussions that took place 5-6 years ago, and seemed like there was a big focus on this one issue, to where a lot of people came out and spoke. Today, we don't have anyone here. I don't know if anyone realizes the change that we're about to make. So,
Are you thinking specifically of the 76 feet?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounded like, David, from kind of your discussion, that they were more concerned about the border building heights, the 54 feet, was it, or 55 feet, adjacent to the residential areas. But I don't know. That's just my one.
I would agree with the comment that it's a pretty significant change that is being discussed. And I personally am not opposed to it, but I do want to make sure we've kind of gone through a really good, thorough public notification process. So I'm really supportive of the comment. Commissioner Stahl?
Building heights is one of these things that always solicits strong opinions. I mean, I've been in the audience at times, and anytime you bring up building height, you're just guaranteed that people will come. It's actually surprising to
that we didn't get
have
more.
nobody here. But even that said, I mean, I'm inclined to trust staff's recommendations. I realize there's no people can still come and still. I mean, nothing's closed today, but we'll get a lot of strong opinions on both sides. But I don't think that's going to really change anything.
I would agree, and I think if you just to encapsulate what both Commissioner Cabe and Stahl have said is, I think that we're generally supportive, but we just want to make sure that a really thorough announcement, notification, public process, and that there will be ample opportunity in the future for a more thorough public examination of this. But I think the Planning Commission is generally supportive of what you're recommending.
So, and just a little perspective,
Sure.
I was there. I remember the recommendations, and then we pulled back, especially on the transition zone along. And what we said, at least it was said, and it wasn't maybe part of our our conclusions at the end, but it was definitely brought up was we're going to have to see what happens. And I think that we've seen some buildings downtown that are larger in scope and bigger than we've ever had, and I'm just surmising that people are starting to like. I mean, because we haven't had that before. We didn't know, so I think there was a lot of anxiety about 65-foot, 70-foot buildings in downtown Bothell because we haven't seen them. So maybe moving forward as we get used to them, that's why we're not seeing any pushback right now. I don't know, but the recommendations, and it was always we tried to, it was a floor issue. We tried to make sure they'd had enough room in the floor to get there, but we're finding that with these new requirements that they need higher ceilings for the clear glass at the top and things like that. So I'm supportive of it. I was one of the ones that were concerned at the time, especially when we abutted the single family. That's where I thought, but the downtown, I always thought that should be higher, but that was an argument at that time that I didn't win. So,
Thanks. Yeah, I can see how 5 years ago we probably never even had a crane like we have in downtown now. So the thought of a huge block-wide hole in the ground and just kind of what would be major construction was just kind of a foreign thought.
it was.
Yeah. Yeah, Commissioner Bleet.
And I haven't been here very long, so but I have a kind of question. So if a building, if one of these newer buildings that goes in, and I don't have much trouble with the increased height, especially if it has to do with more energy efficiency with regards to windows. If a building if a commercial building were ever to want to put like solar panels on, and it were to increase the height by just a few feet, is that additional height requirement needed, and that's a different discussion, I know, but it's just something that's kind of, while we're talking about building heights, it's kind of.
Yeah. I'd have to actually go back and look at exactly what we came up with, but we did deal with solar panels in downtown and citywide in our some sustainable development code amendments 2 or 3 years ago. And I think essentially in downtown, one, since slope roof buildings, the measurement is to the top of the eave. If you did a sloped roof building and put solar panels on the roof, that would be allowed. If you have a flat roof building, we would treat the solar panels on a flat roof building the same way we treat mechanical equipment. They could project 10 feet above, as long as they were set back from the edge and screen. Well, they wouldn't have. We did remove the screening requirement because that could defeat the function, but they would have to be set back so they weren't visible from the immediate street.
We came back and allowed them because we liked some of the like the stuff they did down at the university on top of the parking garages and things.
Yeah.
So we came back and said, hey, this makes sense. And so we opened it up like for the screening. We took a look at it and made it more user-friendly than it was before.
Right.
So I think the feedback is that we're going to support the height increase, but we do want to make sure as you communicate this to the city council and to any other kind of public way that it's announced that we want to. We just want to make sure that there was ample opportunity for public feedback on a key issue like this. To have an empty room, we just want to make sure that was absolutely done.
So I can incorporate those kind of comments in the findings as part of your recommendation,
Right.
And then there will be this will be coming back not as a standalone item, but as part of the integrated overall document, and then of course it'll be going to city council for hearings, and so there will be other opportunities for public comment on it.
Excellent. So at this time, are we ready to go ahead and take a motion with regards to the downtown sub-area plan and staff's recommendations? Are there any other things you'd want us to review, Dave, before we?
Nope. That's it for.
All right, we're ready to hear a motion.
Now, motion to go with the staff's recommendations for the downtown sub-area plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. And then
you.
the final order of business for tonight would be to continue the public hearing on the plan and code update to February 25th.
Let's have a motion to that effect.
Yeah, I move that we continue the public hearing on the 2015 periodic plan and code update to February 25th.
All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Looking at the rest of our agenda, we do not have a study session. Old business. Any other reports from staff?
None.
Any other reports from members? Seeing none. One just item before we adjourn, just to confirm. So we will not have a meeting next week, the 18th, but we will. Our public hearing and our next meeting will be on February the 25th.
Correct.
All right.
And that'll be the third review of the Waynita Simons Norway Hill sub-area plan.
Terrific. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.